For 40 years, my wife went to the bank every Thursday, rain or sunshine, sick or tired. She never missed a single week. I used to joke about it, called it her little ritual. She would smile, kiss my cheek, and say some habits keep a marriage standing. The day after her funeral, I stood in our quiet kitchen, her coffee cup still on the counter, her coat still hanging by the door. And for the first time in 4 decades, Thursday came, and she did not. Something felt wrong. Not grief. Not yet. Something heavier, like a truth pressing against my chest. So I went to the bank, just to close her accounts, just to finish paperwork. That is when the clerk looked at me, looked at her name, and softly asked, "So do you know about the other account?" In that moment, I realized my wife did not just leave behind memories. She left behind a secret, one that would destroy everything I thought I knew about our life together. I am 72 years old. I have lived in the same small town my entire life. The kind of town where everyone knows your name, and your business, and your mistakes. I worked at the same factory for 38 years. Metal presses, early mornings, oil on my hands that never quite washed off. I was not ambitious. I was steady. I believed showing up mattered more than dreaming. My wife, Eleanor, was the opposite. She noticed details. She remembered birthdays. She kept the house warm even when money was tight. She laughed easily, but she also held parts of herself close. Like certain thoughts were hers alone. We met when we were both young, too young to know what forever meant. She worked at the library. I pretended to read books just to hear her talk. She married me even though I had nothing but calloused hands and promises. Our life was simple. Church on Sundays, dinner at 6, television low in the evenings, her head on my shoulder, my hand holding hers. We never had much money, but we never fought about it either. Bills were paid, food was on the table, and once a year, she would plan a small trip. Nothing fancy, just somewhere quiet. The only thing I never understood was the bank. Every Thursday morning, she dressed neatly, put on the same light blue coat, and left at 9 sharp. She always came back calm, sometimes lighter, sometimes quiet. I never asked. Not really. It felt rude, like asking someone about their prayers. Some things deserve privacy, even in marriage. She handled the finances. Always had. I trusted her completely. She never gave me a reason not to. No mispayments. No calls from creditors. No panique. People say love is passion or fire, but for us it was routine and trust and silence that felt safe. Then she got sick. Not suddenly. It crept in slowly. Doctor visits, medication bottles lining the counter. Still she went to the bank, even when walking hurt, even when breathing was hard. I once offered to go for her. She squeezed my hand, smiled, and said no. This is something I need to do myself. When she passed, the house became unbearable. Every sound echoed. Every room felt too large. I moved through days like a ghost. I told myself grief was the worst pain a man could feel. I was wrong, because grief assumes you know the person you lost. What waited for me was the realization that I never truly did. I went to the bank on a quiet Monday morning, the kind of morning where the air feels too still, like the world is holding its breath. The building smelled the same, clean, cold, unchanged. I had waited outside that place for 40 years without ever stepping in. The clerk was young, too young to look me in the eyes when she said my wife's name. She typed slowly, paused, then frowned at her screen. "Sir," she said, "are you aware your wife maintained a second account?" The word second hit me harder than the word account. I laughed without meaning to. A small nervous sound. "No," I said. "There must be a mistake." She shook her head. Her fingers moved again, clicking, scrolling. "This account has been active for 4 decades. Weekly deposits. Consistent. Precise." I felt heat crawl on my neck. My wife. My Eleanor. The woman who never lied about anything bigger than a surprise cake. "How much?" I asked. She hesitated, then turned the screen slightly. The number did not make sense. It was too big, too heavy. It did not belong to our life. That money represented birthdays skipped, vacations never taken, Clothes she patched instead of replacing. My chest tightened. I sat down because my legs forgot how to work. Why? I whispered. Why would she hide this? The clerk told me the account required an in-person visit. Every Thursday. No online access. No exceptions. I drove home slowly. Every red light felt like an accusation. When I walked into our house, it no longer felt familiar. It felt staged, like a set built to trick me. I opened drawers, not frantically, methodically, as if answers might rise politely to the surface. In the back of the closet, I found a box. Plain, unmarked, dust thick on the lid. Inside were envelopes, dozens of them, all dated, all addressed in my wife's handwriting. Not to me, to a name I had never heard. Marcus Hale. My heart pounded so loud I could hear in my ears. I opened one letter with shaking hands. She wrote about the weather, about her garden, about missing him. Missing him. I sank onto the bed. The room spun. Images flooded my mind. Her smiles, her quiet Thursdays, her tired eyes. Was an affair. For 40 years. I wanted to scream, to tear the house apart. But instead, I kept reading. Her tone was not romantic. It was careful, measured, almost apologetic. In another letter, she wrote, I did what I could. I hope it was enough. Enough for what? By nightfall, my grief had turned sharp, like glass under my skin. I felt betrayed, not just as a husband, but as a man who had trusted completely. The next morning, I returned to the bank. I demanded answers, raised my voice, did not recognize myself. The manager came out, older, calmer. She recognized my wife's name immediately. She was very kind. She said, always polite, never late. I asked about Marcus. Her face changed, just slightly. Sir, she said, that account was set up for child support. The words fell into the room like broken plates. Child support. I laughed again, this time louder, almost hysterical. That is impossible. I said, we never had children. She looked at me with something like pity. Not with you, she said. The room closed in. Air felt thick, unusable. She explained. Years before our marriage, my wife had a son, a teenage mistake, a closed adoption, a promise she was told would protect everyone. But the protection came with conditions. Silence, distance, money. She chose to support him quietly, without disrupting the life she built with me. Every Thursday was not a ritual. It was a responsibility. I left the bank numb, anger replacing shock, layer by layer. She had a child. She had another life. And she never trusted me enough to tell me. I drove until my hands hurt from gripping the wheel. That night, I shouted at empty rooms, at photographs, at memories that now felt staged. You lied to me. I yelled. You let me believe we were everything. Days passed. Then weeks. I avoided neighbors, ignored calls, lived on coffee and bitterness. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name. Inside was a note, written in a familiar hand. If you're reading this, I am gone, and I am sorry. She wrote about fear, about shame, about loving me too much to risk losing me. She wrote about Marcus, about watching him from afar, about helping him through school, through sickness, through life. She wrote, I did not choose one family over another. I chose the only way I knew to protect both. My anger cracked, but it did not disappear. At the bottom of the letter was an address. I stared at it for hours, knowing this was the moment where pain could turn into something else. I folded the letter carefully, put on my coat, and for the first time in 40 years, I went somewhere on a Thursday that my wife never wanted me to follow. I drove for 3 hours, past towns I had never visited, past exits I never took. The road hummed beneath the tires like it was warning me to turn back. The address led me to a modest house. White paint, small porch, children's shoes by the door. I sat in the car longer than I should have. My hands trembled, not from age, from fear. This was the moment everything would change, no matter what I found. I knocked once, soft, then harder. A man opened the door, mid-40s, tall. My wife stared back at me. For a second, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt electric. Heavy. He broke the silence. "Can I help you?" My voice came out hoarse. "My name is Daniel." I said. "I was married to Eleanor." His face drained of color. "She passed away." I added. He stepped back slowly, like the floor had shifted under him. "I know who you are," he said quietly. That hurt more than anything else. He knew me, but I never knew him. He invited me inside. The house smelled like soup and laundry, like life continuing. We sat at the kitchen table, the same kind of table Eleanor and I shared for decades. He looked nervous. I felt furious. "Why?" I asked. "Why did she hide you from me?" He swallowed hard. "She did not hide me," he said. "She hid you from me." Those words stopped me cold. He told me everything. How she came to see him once a year, always at a distance, always careful, always crying. She told him she was married, that her husband was a good man, that he could never know. She believed the truth would destroy us both. I felt something twist in my chest, a strange mix of rage and guilt. "You took her money," I snapped. "You let her drain her life for you." He shook his head. "She insisted. Every time. She said it was the only way she could be your wife and my mother." That sentence broke something open inside me. My wife had lived 2 lives and carried the weight of both alone. Then he stood up, went to another room, and returned with a folder. Inside were documents, receipts, letters, bank statements. She had not just supported him. She had saved him. Medical bills, legal fees, education, a second chance. She had paid for his daughter's birth, for his recovery, for his future. I looked at the papers, the truth settling in slowly. My anger shifted, turned inward. All those years, I thought we were simple, peaceful, easy, but she was fighting wars I never saw. I stood abruptly. "I lost my wife," I said, "and now I find out I lost her years ago." He met my eyes. "No," he said, "you were the one thing she never lost." That made me stumble. I had no reply. Then he said something that changed everything. "She made me promise," he said, "that if anything happened to her, I would tell you the truth." And then he slid another envelope across the table. My name written in Eleanor handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. She wrote that she knew this day would come, that I would feel betrayed, angry, destroyed. She wrote, "If you are sitting across from Marcus, then I'm already forgiven." She explained the money, the secrecy, the fear. She wrote, "I trusted you with my heart, but I was too afraid to trust you with my shame." Tears blurred my vision. At the end, she wrote, "Do not punish him for my choices. If you want revenge, take it on me, by living free." I sat there for a long time, silent, empty. Then something unexpected happened. His daughter walked into the kitchen, a little girl, 7 maybe. She looked at me, smiled, and said, "Are you the grandpa she talked about?" The word hit me harder than any accusation. I looked at Marcus. He nodded slowly. "She loved you," he said. "She talked about you all the time." In that moment, my need for revenge died. Not against him, not against her, but against the lie I told myself. That love was simple. The real turning point was not anger. It was understanding. I stood up, walked to the door, stopped. I turned back, looked at him. "I will not pretend this does not hurt," I said, "but I will not let her sacrifice turn into poison." He nodded, eyes wet. I left the house lighter, but forever changed. The climax was not confrontation. It was surrender, not to betrayal, but to the truth. That love can be messy, painful, and still real. And that my wife, the woman who went to the bank every Thursday, was stronger, braver, and more human than I ever knew. I did not go home right away. I sat in my car with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, feeling like I had lived an entire second lifetime in one afternoon. The sky was turning orange, the same color Eleanor loved at sunset. She used to stand by the window and say, "This is the hour where secrets feel lighter." For the first time, I understood what she meant. I drove back slowly, not because I was tired, but because I needed the road to stretch the moment, to let the truth settle into my bones. When I walked into my house, it no longer felt like a stage. It felt like a witness. I sat in her chair, The one she always claimed hurt her back. And I spoke out loud. You should have trusted me. The words did not echo. They softened, like the house was answering. Days turned into weeks, and something unexpected happened. The anger never came back. The betrayal stayed, but it changed shape. It was no longer sharp. It became heavy, like a stone I learned to carry. I began reading her old journals, not looking for more secrets, but looking for her. Between grocery lists and doctor appointments, I found pieces of the woman I married, and the woman I never fully saw. She wrote about fear, about loving too deeply, about thinking sacrifice was the same thing as protection. She wrote, "If I am strong enough to carry this alone, then maybe no one else has to suffer." That was her mistake. I visited Marcus again, not to confront, but to listen. We talked quietly, about her laugh, about the way she hummed while cooking, about how she never finished a cup of tea. He showed me photos of her standing across the street, watching his daughter play, never approaching, always smiling. That broke me more than the money, more than the secret. She denied herself a life, so others could keep theirs intact. One afternoon, his daughter asked me to read her a story. I hesitated, then sat down. My voice shook, but she did not notice. She leaned against me, like she had known me forever. That was the moment I understood the final truth. The revenge was never about punishing someone. It was about refusing to let pain have the last word. I could have hated my wife, destroyed her memory, turned love into bitterness. But instead, I chose to do the one thing she never allowed herself to do. Ishuzonisti. I told the neighbors. I told our church. I told the story without anger. Some judged, some pitied, some understood. But I did not feel shame, because shame belongs to secrets, not truth. I went back to the bank one last time, closed the account, transferred what remained, not to myself, to Marcus' daughter. That money was never mine. It was never even hers. It was love disguised as guilt. On the first Thursday after that, I woke up early, put on my coat, and stood by the door. For 40 years, that day belonged to her. Now it belonged to me. I did not go to the bank. I went to the cemetery. I sat beside her stone and told her everything. About the pain, the anger, the forgiveness. I told her she should have trusted me, but I also told her I understood. Then I said something I never thought I would. Thank you, not for the secret, but for showing me what love really costs. Love is not possession. It is sacrifice without applause. Love is carrying a burden, so others can walk lighter. As I stood to leave, I realized my world did not fall apart. It cracked and let the truth in. I went home, opened the windows, let the air move again, and for the first time since she passed, Thursday did not feel empty. It felt complete, because the woman who went to the bank every week did not betray me. She trusted me too late, and I forgave her just in time. For 40 years, my wife went to the bank every Thursday, not to hide a secret, but to protect a love that was bigger than both of us.